Welcome to the JB Media Institute's Digital Drop-In. This is Sarah, the lead instructor, and I'm here with Justin as usual.
Hey Sarah, hey everyone, welcome.
So I'm really excited about today because I feel like one of the things that I enjoy really digging into is sort of the trends that are happening in travel and tourism. There's always sort of new things, especially when we come into a new year. There's new things that people are talking about and new things that are, I think, important to pay attention to if we're thinking about the future as well. So we're going to talk about a few different things today, including just trends in travel that I know are being discussed, and then actual trends in the tourism marketing. So we will talk a little bit about just what people are doing, and then we'll talk a little bit about different ways that we can try to tap into those particular groups. As usual, if you have not attended a digital drop-in before, like I said, you can chat in any questions during the call and we will be able to see them. There's also a Q&A feature, so you should be able to, if you'd like, to simply type your questions into the Q&A and it will alert me as well. So please feel free to drop your comments or thoughts or questions wherever you would like, and we will definitely make sure that we take the time to talk about them. But to get started, like I said, I'm really excited to share a little bit of information just about the trends that are going on in travel and tourism in general. Oh, and also just as a reminder for everybody who's here, I'm going to share lots of links and information, but you will get a copy of this emailed to you in the next couple of days. So you'll have a copy of this recording as well as a copy of the slides, so you can dig more into this topic if you'd like to later. But essentially, just to start out, looking at travel and tourism stats, the U.S. travel market grew about 5% in 2018, and in 2019, that remained pretty steady, right? And so essentially we can see that there's about a 5% increase overall. And they're estimating that by 2022, the total gross bookings will have increased to over $440 billion. So right now, the travel market is still moving forward pretty strongly. Again, I think in a climate where the economy is sort of moving and shaking and going along right now, that people are taking the opportunity to travel even more. And we'll talk a little bit about how they're doing it. But also 74% of travelers use social media, 85% use mobile to book activities, and 60% use navigation apps while traveling. So I think this is just important to understand that when it comes to social media and mobile devices, especially using different apps on your phone to travel, that essentially, it's a large percentage of people in the United States that are now engaging a lot in social media and mobile around their actual trips and their vacations and the amazing things that they're doing. So you can see 76% post vacation photos, 55 like Facebook pages that are specific to a vacation, 46% post hotel reviews, 40% post activity and attraction reviews, and 40% post restaurant reviews. So just so we're aware that people are getting more and more active every year in not just using social media and mobile devices to plan their trips, but when they're actually on their trips, they are using those systems in a lot of ways in the moment, which I think is important to keep in mind. Also, when we look, like I said, at kind of what people are doing when they are researching, we find that 1 in 5 travelers are literally using their social media to figure out where they should stay and where they should go and where they should eat. So you can see those percentages right there. A lot of people actually go and ask their friends on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to give them recommendations. They can look up the pages of different places that they're going on Facebook and learn a lot about what it's like to go to that location or eat in that place, read the reviews, and so forth. And a lot of people are also looking for travel inspiration, right? So they're not just using, let's say, the social media site that they're most frequently using. Sometimes they're actually using additional sites when it comes to travel. So this is where we see Facebook, of course, is always at the top, but TripAdvisor is the next sort of biggest site that people are using. And we don't often think of TripAdvisor as social media, but it is. in a lot of ways. It's a community of people. They have profiles. They can generate a lot of content. And then, of course, Twitter and Pinterest are there as well. But I think it's just, like I said, important to remember that the way people are traveling now, they not only use their laptops and their computers to research information, but a lot of times they're using their smartphones, their tablets, and then because their smartphone can go everywhere with them, the research doesn't stop when they go on their vacation or their trip, right? The research continues in the moment. So while they're actually moving through a region or visiting your location, they're actually using their phone to write reviews, connect with people, take pictures, and share what's happening and all of that. So we're in a world where we have to remember, especially on social media, that we don't just engage people before they get to us. We engage them while they're there on social media potentially. So huge opportunities in the sense that if you can get more people to talk about what they're doing when they come to visit you, then you can increase your own engagement on social media. But I think also important to realize that with social media, that means we really have to pay attention to it. We have to pay attention to what people are saying. We have to pay attention to the way that they're interacting with us in the moment, because if they have a great experience, we really want them to talk about it. And if they don't have a great experience, they probably are going to talk about it. And a lot of times they can talk about it before they've even left your establishment. So I always find that to be an interesting thing for myself as a traveler, is that I often review things while I'm still in the location, right? Because it's fresh in my mind. Sometimes I'm really happy with the experience, sometimes I'm not, but a lot of times I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to share it in the moment. So making sure that we respond to things and interact on our social media is really, really important. So some of the trends that we are seeing across the board in sort of the tourism sector that I think are really exciting and interesting and open up some new opportunities to maybe tell your story in a different way and new angles at which to pitch different ideas. But the first one is environmental responsibility. So this has been a huge conversation over the last, I think, year, as more and more of the sort of global world has been having conversations online about how do we take care of the environmental problems that we have. And of course, if you're in the tourism world, then you know there is a huge human impact on natural spaces when it comes to travel and tourism. So we have a lot of places in the world that are now suffering from what we call over-tourism, right? Which means there's so many people coming into a location that is actually disrupting the ecosystems and everything else there. So as people become more conscious of this, of their own carbon footprint and of the impact that their travel has on the world, essentially we just see a lot of organizations and businesses and attractions need to start talking about how they're going to speak to this issue of environmental responsibility. So a Booking.com survey recently showed that approximately 70% of travelers are more likely to book lodging if it's eco-friendly, and that 54% of global travelers want to play a part in reducing over-tourism. And so we're willing to sometimes wait longer for something. We're willing to pay more for it if we feel like we can feel more responsible in participating. And so there's lots of different ways that this comes out. I think it's interesting. You'll see a lot of lodging and even attractions now. They may be growing organic food on their actual property and using it to feed their guests. We have a couple of restaurants and hotels here in Asheville that do that. So this sort of smaller kind of urban farming idea is being used to sort of produce organic food that's definitely farm to table, which a lot of people see as a big plus. Conservation and citizen science experiences. Not all of you may be aware of this, but there's a lot of options now in travel. If I want to go, again, to more natural settings and, really engage with the wildlife and the nature, that I can also be a part of using my phone to collect data for different projects. So one of the projects that I'm most familiar with has to do with tracking whales. So if you're going on an experience where you're going to be whale watching and things like that, you can participate in some citizen data collecting by sharing that information with an organization that's helping to track what's going on with the whales. So there's interesting things like that that are coming up that people are really getting excited about, because it means the vacation that they take is something that is just more impactful. Microcations, which I think is this sort of reminds me of the last time I did a webinar about this. We talked about bleisure, which is business/leisure travel. Microcations is kind of another, sort of mashed together of two words. But it's basically that a lot of people, in order to reduce their carbon footprint, are seeing that simple domestic getaways make sense. Also, it means that, instead of planning a week or 2 weeks somewhere, flying and doing all that, you may be able to more affordably and more frequently get away for 3 to 5 days somewhere inside of the United States, right? So there is an interesting sort of movement to spend more time exploring our home country and digging into that and thinking about how, we could drive somewhere instead of flying, and all of that. So just something to think about, making little packages and targeting them to the people that don't maybe live right in your region, but maybe live in closer cities to your region. Again, Asheville is a great example of that, because we focus on places like Knoxville and Atlanta and some cities in Virginia to really attract people to come up to our little city and spend the weekend or spend a long weekend with us instead of necessarily coming for a whole week. Carbon offsetting is becoming a big thing, so you'll see lots of different tourism and travel businesses and organizations speaking to their customers and promoting the fact that they're doing a lot of things to try to offset their carbon footprint. And then single-use plastics are becoming a thing of the past. So the way that maybe in the past you've had a lot of hotels where there's water bottles in every room, things like that, there's starting to be creative ways that we stay away from that kind of stuff. And so I think we're going to see this continuing in the future as just a trend, especially that a lot of younger markets are interested in. The second trend is just the idea of digital detox or mindful unplugging. So this is also a global trend that I think is interesting. 67% of India's working professionals and their millennials and solo travelers have opted at different times to go on a tech-free vacation. And so people in the United States, we're looking at this because in our country, we tend to work a lot and not take as much vacation time as other countries. And so essentially, if we have high pressure jobs, if we're a caregiver at home, maybe we're taking care of our parents, our children, if we're involved in volunteering for different causes, supporting different nonprofits in our region, all of that stuff means that we're probably spending a lot of time on our technology. So going away and having a digital detox, which means sometimes giving up your phone and your other devices, or just doing some mindful unplugging, which means really having parts of the day or portions of the day where you willingly put your devices away and you go do something else to kind of cleanse from having them around you. I think a lot of people are doing this just because of the amount of information coming in. The third trend, and this is something that I've actually studied quite a bit and even been featured on a radio show about before, which is solo trips. So I have taken a lot of trips by myself. A lot of times there may be places I want to go that my partner does not want to go with me. There's also a lot of scenarios where with work or other things, it's just not possible for my partner or somebody else to take that trip with me. So I've done a lot of trips on my own. I do a lot of research so that I understand every place that I go and I understand, the basic way that I should carry myself and handle myself, especially as a woman traveling alone. But 60% almost of agents have noticed that a lot of their clients are traveling by themselves now compared to 10 years ago. So I think there's been a big movement about this. Like I said, I was interviewed on a radio show called Speaking of Travel about traveling alone as a woman. And so I think a lot of people are interested, in how do you make sure you're safe? How do you still have a good time? But a lot of time the perks come from you're allowed to follow your own schedule. You might have, sometimes because I'm the owner of my own company, I can take 3 or 4 weeks and go somewhere and work remotely, whereas my partner wouldn't have that opportunity. So if I want to take a longer trip, I have to do it on my own. And so I want to take that time to explore. And then sometimes people are really looking to pursue a specific interest. So if you dig into this, you'll see people are traveling because of even things like they've had their Ancestry.com profile done. They've learned that their family is from certain places. They want to go explore it. Or maybe they want to go on a trip to learn about cooking a certain type of food. So solo experiences are really driven by really personal motivations and passions in a lot of ways. In addition to solo traveling, we see a lot more women traveling alone and also together. So women's only trips have really grown and continued to grow in the last few years, but it's always kind of been a thing, right? Girls' getaway weekends and things like that. Things related to brides and bridesmaids, those things have been typical, but now we just see a lot of women actually just taking trips alone, going on spa trips by themselves as a group, leaving their families at home. And so this is just something I think to pay attention to. Essentially, we already know that 80% of all travel decisions are made by women. So it doesn't matter if they're going with their whole family or on their own. It doesn't matter who's paying for it or even where they go. Typically, women are the ones that put together the whole itinerary, make sure they've got stuff to do for everyone, and handle a lot of those details. 75% of those who take cultural, adventure, or nature trips are women. And there's been a 230% increase in women-only travel companies in just the last 6 years. So there's about 67 million participants in sort of this woman-only world, and it has a potential to bring in around $19 trillion annually. So it's really powerful to think again, how do you build packages? How do you connect with women in general and speak directly to the things that they need and the things that maybe are what get them excited about coming to a particular location. And finally, and Justin will appreciate this one, trend number 5, vegan travel. So veganism has always been around, and there's obviously a handful of people that focus on making sure that if you have dietary restrictions that you can be taken care of on your trips. But there's a big move towards this, and I think this is related to the environmental responsibility piece, right? So there's a lot of discussions around the fact that eating meat and dairy and contributing to factory farms is kind of a negative. So we see people not just making the choice to be vegan for health, or maybe animal rights, but also just for environmental responsibility. So a quarter of 25 to 35-year-old Americans now say that they're vegan or vegetarian. If we look back just to 2015, 5 years ago, only 3% indicated that they were vegetarian and 1% indicated they were vegan. So that's amazing. We went in 5 years from 1 to 3% to 25, which I think is powerful. So we really want to just keep in mind that, again, when we can package things and be clear with people that we're going to be able to cater to the needs that they have, we may actually get a better response to the things that we're selling. So those are just some of the things I think we can be thinking about when we're promoting ourselves or thinking about our target audiences. Or like I said, if you already have vegan restaurants in your region, if you already have, farm to table food where you know that you can accommodate people, it may make sense to start working that into your campaigning more frequently. If you don't have packages for women only and things like that, you might think about how you could build that in and promote that from a campaign perspective. So this all leads us into talking about, like I said, the actual marketing strategies that I think you could be focusing on this year that would be strong. And also, again, I think overall what we see in the trends in travel and tourism from the behaviors of people is that they're looking to plan trips that are specifically created for them, right? They're very personalized in a lot of ways. They want to make sure that while they're traveling, everything that they need will be taken care of. And if they're bringing other people or their families, that those people will be taken care of as well. So based on that, I think chatbots and artificial intelligence are something that we should all be really kind of tapping into and understanding more. So many of you may be using this on something like Facebook Messenger, where you've set up your automated responses. And so there's ways for people to see your messenger open up on Facebook on your business page, see questions that are common questions. And essentially it allows them to kind of feel like they're having a little bit more of a back and forth conversation. And in that conversation, you can kind of ask them, what kind of things they need, and they respond accordingly. So many customers now book their travel and accommodation with the help of internet chatbots, specifically tailored artificial intelligence who can handle queries and assist customers with useful information when human operators are unavailable. So what we're seeing is something like Facebook Messenger is now adapting so that it's much more interactive, right? And so we especially see this happening in the hotel and lodging industry. We're seeing a little bit when it comes to restaurants and bars. But essentially the idea is that people want faster and faster responses. And if we're expecting a singular person to just answer things on social media all day, it can become very cumbersome to where they don't really have any other time to do anything else. So chatbots and AI can help answer a lot of common questions, help filter people into different pieces of information that they need based on their responses. So I think this is something we're going to see growing. One of my favorite tools out there that I would suggest checking out is called Mobile Monkey. And Mobile Monkey allows you to essentially really take sort of things like Facebook Messenger to the next level and create actual chat funnels where you ask people questions, they click on the answers, and it gives them different responses. And so I think it's a good idea to just read about this and understand it. You may not implement it right away because I do think you have to be able to think it through. But as you can see, you can start with Mobile Monkey for free. And basically, it's going to help you create chatbots that'll function 24/7. So when people are messaging you through Facebook and other types of social media, they get this actual back and forth conversational sort of content. And essentially, this can be something that you even add to your website. So again, if you scroll into this, it'll give you a lot of interesting examples to pay attention to, which I think is really positive. So you can see it in action in a lot of ways. But I did include some here in the slides. So you can see here the shop bot, hi Larry, how can we help you today? Request a quote, track an order, size and questions. So as soon as the person clicks on one of these, they can essentially jump into a conversation with the chat bot. And you'll see the one down here, same thing. So, here it's set up to say, we see this is your first time chatting with us. Explore our most popular topics and let me know what you're looking for. So you can see here's a different one when the system detects that the person is new to the conversation. So again, the one thing you have to understand before you set up something like Mobile Monkey is really understanding that it's important to think about the audience experience and the answers they really need and the things they really want to talk about. And Justin, I wanted to let you kind of take over and talk a little bit about organic social and how it can still go viral.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So I added this section specifically because we have two projects that are in the tourism space. There are one is a company that is a subsidiary of JB Media, which is Romantic Asheville. And Romantic Asheville for years has had very effective organic Facebook traffic. So I want to talk a little bit about that and also another client. So what has happened in the last month, we have another client, Smoky Mountain Hosts, which is a regional destination marketing organization kind of covering a handful of counties in the far west of North Carolina. And we have a weekly social media team meeting where our team member who's doing their social and the team member who does Romantic Asheville, they meet, they share ideas, they share resources and strategy. In the last month, the Smoky Mountain Host social media went viral. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I can show you this. I'll have a screenshot here in a minute. That, to put it in context, most months their page drives between 1,000 and 2,000 people to their website, which is about 10% of their traffic. And that's fine. I mean, that's decent traffic. They're happy with the results. And that's from about a growing list of fans. It's approaching 100,000 fans on their Facebook page. And so that would be kind of a normal expectation, 2% traffic from the fans to the site every month. And that's not bad, but it's also not anything to get super excited about. But last month, the Facebook page drove 120,000 visitors in 1 month, or maybe even a little more than that. That is more than the total number of fans, which basically means that something on the page went viral. Something got so popular that it was shared and distributed to people who weren't already fans of the page. The fan growth increased, your traffic increased, and all of our posts after that have done better than the average. So it moved the needle in terms of effectiveness of the page. And I expect a new normal as far as traffic from that account to their site, especially if we keep doing what's working. I don't expect it to be 120,000 anytime in the next couple of years. That's an unrealistic goal. But if we can move it from 2,000 a month to 4,000 or 5,000 a month, that's a major improvement for them. And I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll get to see. But there's been some changes to the strategy that have caused that. Last year, we demanded that they start using a professional photographer. And rather than sourcing images from other people and sharing them, which basically was recycling content, which is a lot of what we were doing before, getting great imagery from Instagram and other Facebook pages and reusing it, but Facebook can tell it's not a new image. So it doesn't do as well. Even though it looks awesome, makes the page look extremely professional when you share other people's content with permission, it's not unique content. And they hired a blogger, which is something else we asked them to do. They're producing great blogs and with great imagery now. And it's just doing so much better. Romantic Asheville has always done well. By that, I mean, they normally get 20,000 visitors a month from 150,000 fans, which is above average. That's like 15% of their fans every month. But last year, with our we bought the site in April and we took over, and we had 4 months in a row that were close to 100,000, which is like 70% of the fans. And that is way above normal. And it's been a matter of the consistency and the creative content. We hired a photographer to go out and shoot when we needed photography. We're producing content. We're not doing things that different than what the former owner was doing. We're learning from him. He's been supporting us and coaching us through the transition. But we have had better results. Last year, Romantic Asheville got over 800,000 visits from social media, mostly from Facebook. And that was more than the year before. The year before it was like 300,000. So it's a big jump in traffic from Facebook. And that and it's mostly organic. We're not spending very much money on these accounts to drive traffic. We're spending, in both cases, less than $500 a month in traffic advertising. It's not a lot of money. It's the kind of money that even a really small organization could do.
Yeah.
So the kind of takeaway, hire professional photographers for unique photos, great blogs that are with great photography, post on a regular basis. Regularly can be, in these cases, it's like 2 or 3 a month. It's not a matter of massive content quantity being what's necessary here. That's why it's so unique as a case study. So this is one of the posts on Smoky Mountain Host. I would even argue that this photo isn't world class. It's nice, but it's not world class. We're not exactly sure why this post went viral, but it did. You can see it reached 144,000 people. That's more than the 98,000 fans the page has. So it reached and it exceeded a 100% reach. And it got 28,000 engagements, which is insanely high, 3,300 likes and 300 comments and 1,400 shares. The 1,400 shares is what caused the reach to go up. Mm-hmm. And it reached a lot of new people. And this is the most successful post from last month. You can see it was February 7th. But there was other really successful posts. We had multiple posts with 10,000 to 15,000 reach, which was way more than we'd seen before. And the clicks and engagement was higher. So the whole month was strong. And I think it was a result of this page going viral and those new people now seeing the page in their feed because they engaged with it. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that'll continue. And then this other one, this is a little bit less visual, but this is the actual graph of the results from Romantic Asheville. What you see here is when prior to the purchase, February, March, you can't quite see the number, but it's 20 to 30,000 a month. And after we took over, it was pretty steady, flat for a while. And then in August, September, October, and November, it went up. And you can see it was over 100,000 in August, almost 100,000 in September, over 200,000 in October, and then about 70,000 in November. And since then, it's been higher. It's like 40 to 50,000 a month. This is the traffic from Facebook. So just this period of time, we've had 700,000 visitors from Facebook. You can see that the majority of that was over these 4 months, and then it's been higher since then. So this was a combination of factors.
Yeah.
Good quality content, multiple posts kind of going micro viral, like getting 5,000 or 10,000 clicks in a month, and then one post in October that went just absolutely crazy and got 150,000 clicks or something like that. This is with a page that has 150,000 fans. So this is an example of what I'm talking about, being consistent. So in the future, I'm planning on doing a webinar where I bring in the 2 women who run these 2 pages, and maybe one other person from our staff who has similar success with Visit Cherokee, and just have them walk through some of their most successful promotions and talk about how it's working for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you for that, Justin. I think that's amazing to just sort of be able to see the examples of the post itself, but also to see the analytics traffic coming through here under social. So if you're doing social media, it's really important to use your Google Analytics to see where you're getting the traffic from. And like I said, to really look at your social media tracking as well, looking at the different content, so that when you see that something like pushed up, big numbers, you can really figure out what that was and try to analyze why, and see if you can continue creating content that gets that same or a similar response. So again, if there's any questions about that stuff, feel free to chat them in, and I'm glad to answer anything. But I want to keep going through some of the other suggestions we have. I want to talk about virtual reality, and I know it's funny. So every time I do these kind of, trends, discussions, and looking at new strategies, you'll see that I think virtual reality and artificial intelligence come up over and over as a theme. And that's because that is what's really driving a lot of the technological advancements in what we're doing on things like social media, or with our websites, or with our email marketing. All of that stuff is being more and more kind of linked together through these newer technologies that have to do with AI and virtual reality and what we call augmented reality, right? But virtual reality is something that's coming into play and is a big conversation in travel and tourism right now. It's funny. So there's kind of 2 ways that it's playing out. One is that VR can be a way to entice people before they come to visit you to even choose your area, right? If you can give them the chance to experience something in VR, they might be excited about doing it for real. Also, there's a lot of situations where, this technology is not just being used in the planning or the pre-travel stage, but actually when you go to different places, there's now the opportunity to take different virtual reality tours. So one of the ones that I know about, because I've been talking about taking a trip with my father eventually over to Italy, and of course we're probably not going anytime soon, but we've been planning a little while out that we want to go there, go to Rome. And I was able to find that there's certain parts of the Vatican that you can't tour, but they will let you VR tour some things, so that if you really want to see it, you can, which I thought was really interesting. So giving people access to things that maybe they can't access, or there is some talk even from that environmental perspective that if you have a place that is sort of, the tourism is like having a bad impact on it, how could you create a VR experience that allowed people to have the experience of being there without actually going there? And there's a lot of conversation too around how this can be something that is very marketable to people with disabilities, right? Or even people who are older, who may not be able to hike up a mountain to a certain spot. But if you could create a VR experience of that, they would pay to have that experience. So this is something that, a lot of different travel companies and tourism organizations are just talking about. They're looking at how this affects lodging and accommodations, because what if you could use VR just to walk into the space that you're trying to rent or book? And there's also a push to really have VR set up. So if I go and look at a hotel, I look at a B&B or something like that, that I actually just book it if I want to from the VR headset, right? So I don't have to go into a screen or any of that stuff. And I think as we look at Gen Zers, which are all people under 22, what we see is that these people are growing up with augmented reality, especially being very common. So augmented reality is really where I use my devices to see different things that I can't see in the physical world, right? And virtual reality is really putting on that headset and getting immersed inside of a place. Both of these things are something that the younger generation is more familiar with, especially if they're gamers. And so, they are going to have, I think, a stronger preference towards this type of technology to experience things. And I just think it's really interesting to think about, again, as those people become adults, which that generation is just now starting to become adults. As they get older, what kind of things will they be interested in that are very different from previous generations? Because I think, like I said, we've got the first sort of human generation that's growing up with the internet and with smartphones their whole lives. And so their kind of desire to connect in with digital space is different. So this is just something, you can click on this link to Forbes magazine, and they've sort of been talking about the bigger picture of this. But I think it's really fascinating, and if you haven't explored virtual reality, I want to encourage everyone to do it. If you're in the tourism industry, I really want to encourage you just to, when you have the chance, go and participate in it. I'm not sure what people have in their different areas. It might be something you'd have to explore if you were in a bigger city. In Asheville, we're lucky because we have one company in town that focuses on this and provides locals with a lot of different experiences. So I've really enjoyed doing everything from testing out games and how you can interact with people to doing types of virtual reality where I'm in nature. So my favorite virtual reality event, I got to be inside of a headset where I was in the bottom of the ocean, standing on top of a sunken ship, and I was able to look at all of the marine life around me, and it was very powerful. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this world in the future. I think, it's a little bit slower to get started right now. The people most familiar with it are definitely gamers. But I think we're going to see that the application of this technology is really big. And if you didn't know, Facebook and Google both have bought VR companies. And so I think it's a matter of them figuring out how to make that type of system run more easily on as it connects to phones and apps, and also how to make goggles more easy to use. And of course, making all of it more affordable for people, I think, makes a big difference. But when you have the chance, test this out. Think about the possibilities. I get a lot of creative juice from digging into VR because I think, like I said, it just opens my mind to a lot of different things that I haven't thought of before. So the next thing that I think is a really important trend for all of us to pay attention to and to really think about is Google Travel. So I noticed last year that Google was reaching out to a lot of different TDAs and CVBs and trying to push them into this training with a company that they brought on board. And a lot of it, I think, was around the fact that Google was trying to say, we are going to start pushing Google Travel to another level. To another level. And when we do that, our actual system is going to keep people from clicking over to other websites, and they're going to be able to book their whole experience inside of Google. So this is where Google is really becoming an online travel agency. So they've taken Google Travel and they've integrated Google Maps, they've integrated Google Flights, right? And so now you've got this more comprehensive travel piece. Again, as a customer, I love it because especially for me traveling for work, Google is extremely helpful in keeping me organized, and often ports in things that I don't even buy from them because it's connected to my Gmail, ports into my phone, and I get alerts about things. And so I see this question from Julie. Can you recommend a good way to organize your social media content calendar, especially when you manage more than one Facebook page? Thank you. So yeah, let me briefly stop talking about Google real quick and answer that question. Essentially, for content calendars, it really is going to depend on whatever system you like to use. I personally like to use spreadsheets. And when I'm first strategizing what my content calendar is going to be, I use a spreadsheet because I'm going to plug in the different months into the spreadsheet, and I'm going to outline all the different tools and when we're posting to them. Sometimes I'm also going to include in that when we're sending emails and when we're actually posting blogs, so I can see how it all rolls together, right? Because a lot of my blog content I want repurposed into social media and my email campaigns. So I typically use a spreadsheet to start, just because I think it makes it easier, again, for me to see the whole picture in one place and to analyze kind of how frequently we're putting out content. I'll also include in so spreadsheets will have different tabs across the bottom. I'll actually use the tabs to include a bunch of other stuff as well. So right now I'm working on a content strategy where one tab is the calendar, one tab is my hashtag research, one tab is all of our partners and collaborators, people we want to mention or curate content from. I call it our curation partner list. And so what I've created is this massive sort of content database where anybody who's working on the social media can come in, know what needs to be posted on any given day, and basically kind of have at their fingertips, oh, well, if I want to curate today, I can just pull from this account or that account. If I want to tag a partner of ours, I already know what the handle is on Instagram. I've got all that organized in there. And then we use another tab just to organize content ideas from the different members of the company that are involved in generating the content. So once I have that spreadsheet, then when I'm working with a client or a student, we look at how do we need to plug this in to some sort of task manager so that you actually have tasks that remind you what you need to get done every day. So that could be Asana, Basecamp. Some people are using Google Calendar along with the tasks that you can set up in sort of Google Calendar and Gmail. So I think the actual implementation of software is just, up to you at the end of the day. And there's also lots of tools out there just for content calendars that you could just Google, right? Lots of pieces of software made for this stuff. So if you felt comfortable learning a new piece of software, you could do that. But hopefully that answers your question and helps you. Like I said, I like to start with at least 3 months, start laying it out and really look at what we've got going on, events, what content do we already have, and really understand where do we need to take pictures, where do we need to take video, all of that stuff. And for me, it's just easier to see it in a spreadsheet, sort of built out in this modular way. But to continue, and just keep sending in any questions if you have them, but I want to continue so we don't run out of time on some of these last trends. So Google is becoming an online travel agency. It's really important that we just understand they are going to try to engage more people inside of Google, and they're going to be providing a lot of personal assistance to people directly through there. They're trying to make it an all-in-one platform for planning your trips, buying all of your stuff, and then actually sharing what happened. It allows you to store all your trip details in one place. And like I said, it integrates with Google Maps and helps you more easily locate things when you're actually traveling. So we just want to be aware that Google is doing this. I think this means, especially for brick and mortar locations, that it's becoming more and more important potentially for you to use Google My Business. So that's what shows up in the local listings on Google, and it's connected to Google Maps. So I think it's really important now that your Google My Business listing be really solid and have a strong connection to Maps, be very accurate with your name, address, phone number. But with this account, you can actually add events and articles, photos and videos. You can ask people to review you, and there's a great free tracking system in there. So make sure that you're using Google My Business to the fullest extent, because I think it's going to affect how you show up on there. And then finally, one of the things that we're seeing happen across the space right now, and especially we see this on Airbnb and TripAdvisor, is this growing idea that you would sell experiences, right? So not people want to come and travel. Nowadays, yes, some people want to go ahead and just choose a la carte what they do. Some people would really like people to just package up a whole day or maybe even a multi-day kind of experience for them. And so Airbnb launched this a while ago, and it's really picked up. And they've really focused on kind of featuring local people, right? And the idea is, I kind of think of it as the same as in the food world, doing small batch. It's like bringing 10 people, bringing 8 people, maybe bringing 20 into an experience, but keeping it small, keeping it with local providers, and making things really awesome and fun. And we see TripAdvisor is now doing the same thing, and they have a similar focus. So I think we just want to be noticing this, because I think we're going to start to see this happen across the industry, that people are going to start talking about the experiences people have, and they're going to be trying to package up things to sell to people in that way. And so I think if you are especially in rural regions and you've got locals that are doing something really unique, think about how you can promote the experience of being there. And especially in rural areas, I think you tend to have a lot of smaller companies. How can smaller companies come together and create an experience? I think there's real opportunity in the marketplace for that to happen. So if you decide, again, that you want to think about this, putting yourself on Airbnb experiences, TripAdvisor experiences, there are a bunch of requirements. You have to meet them. So read the fine print. You have to create packages that meet their standards right now. You have to really clearly outline what people expect. And they're really looking for, like I said, genuine connection, authentic people. They want to go have experiences with people that are really passionate and excited about what they're doing. And if you can create those experiences and offer them, make sure that you're telling people about it. Make sure that you're documenting it sometimes on social media and sharing it and things like that. And then finally, I want to just reinforce, I'm sure all of you already know this, but continue to think about building long-term influencer relationships. Influencer marketing shifts a lot. I think because it's newer, we've seen a lot of trends come and go in influencer marketing, but it's still really strong. And especially again, when we look at the younger markets of under 35, 63% of them trust influencers more than advertising. They trust a person who gives an opinion, and it's somebody that they've already been following for a long time. So don't give up on trying to develop this, right? Think about the different people that you're connected with, that you could partner with, whether they're individuals or maybe even organizations or businesses. So if they have accounts and platforms that already have a following, then you have the chance to potentially collaborate with them on different campaigns, to really work with them to figure out how you're going to drive more engagement from people. To Justin's point of creating viral stuff, a lot of times you have a chance to go more viral if you collaborate with somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Because they may have a larger following than you, or it's just the fact that they're saying what you're doing is awesome means something more than you saying as the business that you're awesome. So you definitely think about this. How can you use sponsors potentially as influencers? How can you use, like I said, other companies in your region that have great followings online? How can you use them? And how can you guys really speak to different niches and get them excited about showing up? So again, there's a lot of things that you can do in this world. I think the biggest thing we're seeing is with influencers, it's quality over quantity. You might have a smaller following, but they're way more engaged than somebody with a larger following. So sometimes those influencers that have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, or maybe even 50, they are getting a lot more engagement than somebody with 4 million followers. So we want to really look at, do they align with us? Are they speaking to the right people? Not always judge them on the number of followers. So again, if there's any questions, I'll stay for an extra few minutes as usual on the line so that you can type in things. When you get the slides, you can see there's my email, so please feel free to reach out anytime with questions. And just for those of you that are in the Asheville area, we do have a boot camp coming up on April 14th. Tickets are on sale now. It's $89. It'll be in the morning. It's a half day. But we're really going to talk about building personal relationships with messaging apps and chatbots, specifically with Facebook Messenger marketing, and really explain what's going on in that world because it's very powerful stuff. Not a lot of people are talking about it. So if you're in Asheville and you want to attend, click that link. And of course, we've got a lot of other resources for you to dig into. If you'd like to, you can check these out. And I see some questions here. Julie, oh, no problem. I'm glad that was helpful. If you want any more information about that, feel free to email me, and I'm glad to just talk about content calendars. I've worked on a lot of them. And then I see Molly. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that everybody was here. But like I said, if you want to check out our November DIY tourism marketing workshop, check out our online class, the contentstrategyroadmap.com. Or again, if you're in Asheville, you can also talk to us about becoming part of our peer mentorship and mastermind program that meets once a month. And that's where we all work together to problem solve and brainstorm different things for a whole day. So if there's any other way that we can support you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And like I said, hopefully we will see you again in a future digital drop-in. Just to make a note, our next one will not be April 1st because I will be up in Pennsylvania teaching, but it will be April 8th. So we'd love to have you join us again for our next digital drop-in. But thank you all for attending. And like I said, we will send out a copy of the slides along with a copy of this recording. So have a great day.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again next month.